We're just super excited to have Devon up here. If you didn't get all the bios, they went out as a link, so I'll let Devon take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. What's the timing on this? We're going to be doing this in two parts.
Right, so we were going to go take a break at 10:50.
10:50, okay, great.
And we can,
Okay, thank you.
I give you a late start, so if you want to take it.
Okay, we'll see what happens here. Thank you very much. Very exciting. I feel like this is my tribe here. It's always good to dig back in and kind of mix it up with people who are of the same mind and who can inspire and keep us moving. CHERP, Community Home Energy Retrofit Project, is what we've been working on for the last 8 years. Community, because community, in my opinion, is the largest meaningful aggregation of people that can self-identify as a group and can actually get something done if they decide to. So in a community, if somebody decides it's a good idea, that idea can go viral very quickly, and that community can make a decision to do something. That can be a city, or that can be a group within a city, a community within a city. Community home. Why home? Home is I think, one of the largest buildings that people can identify with top to bottom and have a visceral understanding of what a home is and how it operates. So when we talk about energy in a home, everybody can understand that because they are imagining their master bedroom that never gets cool enough in the summertime, right? their second floor where they're boiling. They have a visceral understanding of what this is. And then they can extrapolate. Once they've learned building science principles, they can extrapolate to their office building or bigger buildings, right? And everybody lives in a home, generally, or an apartment, but a smaller building. All the people who work in big office buildings live in homes. So if we reach the people who are in homes with visceral understanding and a passion to retrofit their building, that will easily translate to bigger buildings, right? So we are on a tear to focus hyper-locally on educating the public in terms of the opportunity that we all know exists in this room. We all in this room know and could make an argument for energy being the #1 problem on the planet. We're all focused now on net zero energy. It's a culmination in the last 10 years of intelligence in our community of how to move forward. So we want to know now, how do we get there from here? We have to define what there is, right? Together, we better start thinking about what there is. I think that in large part, it's a question of scale. If each one of you were asked, could you do one more job next year than you did this year, would you say yes? Right?
Just barely.
Two more jobs next year than this year? Do you know how to do that? Yes. Is it a question of technology? No. It's a question of capacity, right? If you were to double your business next year, is that a technical issue or a management issue? Right? It's organization of people. We can make net zero buildings. We need to extrapolate to learn how to make net zero cities, right? So we need to take everything that we've been learning here, all the technical pieces of building science that we all know and can relate to, all the modeling that's required, all the performance metrics, all the collaboration with everybody else on our team. Then we need to squeeze all the energy efficiency into this project that we can. Then we need to put renewables on it. We know the process. It's the same process here as it is here. This is the outline of the city where I live, Claremont. This is the city we've been focusing on for the last 8 years trying to answer this question of scale. A friend of mine on Martha's Vineyard has been building net zero buildings for the last 15 years. He's been building low income net zero buildings on Martha's Vineyard. There's at least a couple oxymorons. His favorite quote is, "There are no net zero homes, only net zero families." He's been building 20 net zero identical homes next to each other at a time, each one of them operating at wildly different performance metrics after the families move in, right? It's a people issue. They solved the technical issue a long time ago. We're getting better and better at it as we go forward. But primarily we're dealing with people. I can imagine that at some point a home can be designed to be automatic based on occupancy. That's an extrapolation that's pretty easy to make at this point. You dial in how many people, how many teenagers, male or female, and the home will self-adjust, right? That's pretty simple. But I think as we extrapolate to cities now, it's pretty easy to say, I think, that we can believe that right now there are no net zero cities, only net zero citizens. And in fact, net zero citizens are the path to a net zero city. If we don't have citizens asking for net zero, we will never have the opportunity to design to that, right? It's a people issue. By way of introduction for myself, just a little bit about my history and transition into from running an architecture and construction company to being here today. I spent 30 years running a design build company in Claremont, California, building what we considered to be the highest quality designed, durable structures that we could possibly imagine. Over 30 years, we developed into a company with 10 registered architects, interior designers, 50 craftspeople, and about 40 subcontractors, doing historic restoration work. This is a green and green that we have the opportunity to completely restore in Claremont, new homes, and we were happy. I was, at this point, I was 25 years into my career, thinking that we were really at the pinnacle of our craft. Then, in 2003, this magazine came across my desk. Architects Pollute. A guy named Ed Mazzaria, architect out of Chicago, Architecture 2030, started rethinking about who and what sectors are really using energy. Turns out that we've been building buildings without regard for energy. This is 2003. This shocked me when I started seeing this, because I was like everybody else. I had really no idea what was causing our GHG problem in the world, but I kind of thought it was maybe transportation and certainly industry. Factories had got to be the problem. But we know, of course, now in this room, that it's buildings. And in fact, the homes that we live in the United States use more energy than commercial buildings. And certainly in my community, 80% of the energy used in my community is used in residences. And this is also true in Los Angeles. It's not 80%, but in LA County, residences use more energy than commercial buildings. Now, if you go to the mall today, nobody knows this. If you go to the universities today, most people don't know this. If you go to the churches and faith-based communities today, nobody knows this. After 10 years of Energy Upgrade California, people don't know this, right? So I got very inspired and shocked dismayed. Ended up in a class with Rick Chitwood in 2007, 9-day building science class that took the top of my head off. It became so exciting. It was like discovering King Tut's tomb. I've been designing and building buildings for 25 years, almost 30 years at that point, and had never heard the kind of things that he was talking about. And the opportunity to actually decide what your performance metrics are going to be, do it, and then measure and prove that you've taken that cardboard box and turned it into a thermos. We didn't know we'd been designing cardboard boxes because we never thought about it that much. So we now know that buildings were the problem, and after taking this class and learning that we can fix buildings and that buildings are wasting at least 50% of the energy they're using, we all know it's even more, then buildings, in my mind, could also be the solution, right? And so I decided to join, like all of you, the energy efficiency revolution that we've all been working on now for the last 10 years. This is our mission, right? This is our why. It's a big why. It's a lot resting on this why. This is our how, right? All the stuff that we've been going over in the last 4 weeks, in the last 4 months, actually. Multiple benefits. I mean, it's ridiculous the number of benefits. We started thinking about energy, but then we uncovered all of these other benefits. So we won't go over those because we all get excited about every one of them, but I mean, each one of these things is worth a retrofit, let alone all of them together. The value for a community of all of these things stacked up is almost immeasurable. I believe that the health benefits of a healthy home far outweigh even the economics of the energy benefits. With the rampant increase in respiratory illnesses in this country, right, that we know anecdotally that we're addressing. So this is normally also an oxymoron. But the government, the government in California and the governments of the world are really here to help us. So what do we mean by that? We've got the Paris Climate Accords, by all accounts, one of the most important diplomatic events in history. 195 countries believe that this stuff is important. I used to have a picture of Obama here, so we'll just skip over the federal and go right to the California. 2006, first in world climate change law, right, in California. Governor Moonbeam, back in '78, first time around, really supported the CEC and the CPUC, got it running, avoided nuclear power plants all the way up and down the coast by focusing on energy efficiency. And you know the story. It continues as a legislative richness to build up in terms of what the government is offering us, right? All the way down to what we've just been hearing from Kevin. I mean, this stuff did not exist 10 years ago. E-mortgages were around, but nobody heard about them, right? So we've got government help, and we've got huge resource at the top, offering energy efficiency. McKinsey & Company back in 2008 was talking about trillions of dollars that could be unlocked in energy efficiency. Trillions. You know how much $1 trillion is? If you spent $1 every second, it would take you 31,700 years to spend $1 trillion. This is energy efficiency, right? So we've got all this opportunity, and we've got communities and building owners down here. This is what we call barriers to scale, because there's a giant void here. We know stuff in this room that not very many people know. So this is the space that we live in. CHERP. We're trying to bridge the gap here because we know that there are only local solutions to this global problem. And this is the problem that we're all trying to focus on, right? So let's go back down memory lane here. Back in 2008, after I took that building science course, I developed one of the first energy efficiency divisions inside my construction company in the state. So in 2008, we had a division that we switched to just doing an energy efficiency, just that division. It was a very heady time. CEC, CPUC had a whole house energy retrofit cornerstone policy. The goal was to reduce energy consumption by 40% in 13 million households in California by 2020. We had big goals, right? Big goals. We were very excited about EUC coming out. We promoted it like crazy. We had in meetings just in Los Angeles, we had hundreds of contractors showing up to do this work. We would show up in a room and there would be 250 people in that room at the gas company talking about the excitement of this. Over that next 8 years, 7 years, we spent over $200 million in the state. I think this is a low number to push this out there. So I think it's instructive for us to ask, what happened? Right? One thing that happened is we probably have about 20 to 30 home performance contractors left in the state. Does anybody disagree with this? Does anybody think it's more? Anybody think it's less? Yeah. I think I'm being generous here. Right? This is the downside, and this is one of the things I want to focus on here. What happened here? We better know what happened after $200 million in 8 years, because we do not want to repeat that. The good thing is that we in this room and collectively throughout the state are a lot smarter than we were in 2008. We're a lot wiser. The level of conversation in this room is orders of magnitude more sophisticated. We have more resources at our disposal than we ever imagined in 2008. Right? So those of us that are left after the bloodbath have come through and we are wizened. So we have an opportunity. So let's step back here. We're always talking to the market. So when we're out talking to homeowners and city officials, we're saying it's easy to get to net zero. There's 4 steps, right? First step is you've got to have a strategic investment plan. And these days we can actually have an investment plan, an investment grade plan to show how much money can be spent on which measures that will net how much internal rate of return by when. That's possible to do today on a city scale. Community engagement. We need community engagement. We need to get all the stakeholders involved. We know we need to do building retrofits to maximize EE. We know we need then renewable energy to top it all off. And renewable energy also includes storage and vehicles, right? This is how we communicate where we're going. So what happened from here to here in this easy scenario is that this never happened. We made attempts. We designed programs that were so incredibly complicated and onerous for the homeowner and for the contractor and for the professionals that this never really happened. So for example, we spent a lot of time on technology. I was driving home one time and heard on NPR a journalist was sitting around with his friends and they were talking about some hard problem. And they said, well, at least it's not brain surgery, right? So we'll probably be able to figure out this problem. So he goes, oh, that's interesting. He says, I wonder what brain surgeons say when they do that. Yeah, he called Cedars-Sinai and talked to a bunch of brain surgeons and asked them specifically, as a journalist, when you're sitting around talking about solving problems, what do you say? And they say, well, we say at least it's not rocket science. So, being a good journalist, he calls JPL, talked to some rocket scientists, and they talked about it a little bit, and they go, yeah, well, that's obvious. We say, at least it's not theoretical physics. So, they call Caltech. They talk to the smartest people on the planet, and the theoretical physics people said, when we sit around and talk about this, we say, at least it's not political science. Right? So, is this easy? No. It's probably the hardest thing, but it's the thing we focused on the least. Right? So let's think about this right now. In all of your companies that you work in, who's the most important person in your company? The do or die function in your company? Huh? It's the client, right? A company who's always trying to maximize their own internal processes oftentimes forgets about the client. Or the client sometimes becomes a nuisance, right? Because they're just kind of in the way. They're kind of constantly coming in demanding things, right? If you don't have a client, you don't have a business. So the best companies organize themselves around their client, right? So in this sense, if we are a company, an organizing company and a marketing company, to try and get things, trying to get ZNE accomplished in our communities. What's the most important constituency for this conference? It's all the people who are not here. There are 47,000 people in San Luis Obispo, right? And we're 80 or so, right? Those people who are not here are the target audience for what we're doing. So we have to get from here to there. That's our point. And in order to do that, we need to use a different language externally from the language that we use internally. So that's why I simplify a lot of the language that we're talking about here. So let me focus on this. I'm sorry this is so small. But in my opinion, the heroes of the entire energy efficiency and net zero movement are the architects, engineers, and contractors. Because the entire edifice of net zero rests on the people who are installing this stuff, right? Who execute. We can all design, but we need to execute this. So back in 2010, when we had a goal of doing 13 million houses in 10 years, I sat down and made this chart. Being a contractor, I said, this is important, right? So let's take a look at this. I decided to say, okay, because I knew energy efficiency contractors, we just started the business, and I thought, wow, it would be great to get to the point where I could do 3 jobs a week, right? Who's doing 3 energy efficiency jobs a week, right? I mean, deep energy retrofits. So, but let's just extrapolate. 3 jobs per week times 50 weeks is 150 jobs per year, right? 150 jobs per year to reach 13 million houses in 10 years would be 1,300,000 jobs a year. We would need 8,667 contractors to accomplish that. Ready to go right now, doing 3 jobs a week. Right? If they did 4 jobs, if they did 5 jobs, if they did 5 jobs a week, it'd be 5,200. So I said, well, that's kind of crazy. That's never going to happen. Let's say it takes 35 years at contractors doing 3 jobs a week, 150 a year. We're still going to need, to do 13 million houses, we're going to need 2,480 contractors starting today, doing 3 jobs a week, right? I just want this to soak in a little bit, because what we're trying to solve for is huge problems. This is a huge socio-political communication marketing problem. In Claremont, we set off to retrofit 130 houses, 1% of all of our 13,000 households. Took us about a year and a half. We blew past 130. We're now past 400. We've retrofitted more homes per capita than any other city in California. And we're starting to see some really great numbers. Utility costs extrapolated. These are very conservative numbers. Utility costs extrapolated over 25 years. Rebates received, dollars invested in real estate, increase in property values. Our goal is 1,300, 10% of the homes in our community. The numbers get huge. Our city manager loves this. So let's take a look at this. Again, if we were to accomplish retrofitting 13 million households at $15,000 per job in California, that's a $195 billion proposition. $15,000 at a time, right? If it's a $20,000 job, $260 billion. That's even if we did it at the 35-year pace, at a $15,000 job, that's $5 billion dollars, creating 150,000 jobs. Because there's no way to stimulate a local economy like stimulating it through construction. It's local job creation. You can't outsource it. It's maximum leverage on local economic development. So community engagement. Why don't we get engaged in our communities around this opportunity? This speaks everybody's language, right? And satisfies all of the legislative requirements all the way back up to Sacramento that we were talking about before. So this is where I think we need to be focusing strategically. Public-private, nonprofit partnerships to figure out how we are going to get from here to there, right? This is going to require all of our creative thinking and start to be able to think about how that $10 billion, and that's just one $10 billion. You know what the other $10 billion is? The $10 billion projected to be earned from cap and trade over the next 10 years. There are billions of dollars here ready to be funneled into our local communities if we could figure out how best to leverage it to get some of these benefits brought to our communities. So I believe that the number one problem in the world is energy. I started off that way 10 years ago. Today, I seriously believe that this is not the problem. The problem is community engagement. So what we're going to do now is, with your patience, I will take you on a tour of what we've been working on for the last 8 years with CHERP as an attempt at addressing all 4 of the issues necessary to get us to net zero, which is strategy, community engagement, energy efficiency, and PV, right? So I'm just gonna show you guys kind of what we've been up to. Hopefully it will kind of spark ideas. And then what I would like to hear back from you when we break up into small groups is what kind of ideas that sparked in your brains and what kind of things you guys are doing that we could all kind of pull together so that we can grow from this. So strategic investment plan. Over this last couple of years, in a project that I was working on with UCLA, I met a bunch of people who showed me that it's now possible to create a strategic investment plan for an entire city. We can take a look at an entire city to see what's required to take it to net zero. We have the tools to do that. So for example, this is back to the city of Claremont. This is our borders. We've been able to map with satellite every single swimming pool in the city. Right? Relatively easy to do. It was done, in a locked data mining facility 3 stories below ground at UCLA. but it's possible. So this is our larger community, and in an attempt to show that there are communities within communities, this is what we call South Claremont. This is the portion of the city below the railroad tracks, which was in CalEnviro's Green 2.0, bright red in terms of a disadvantaged community environmental, right? So we were focused on this community for a number of reasons. So this is that lower portion. So we also mapped every single building type by square foot. And so we know what that assessment is. We, through satellite, identified every single existing solar system in South Claremont, actually in the whole city. Also through satellite, it's possible to map every square inch of potential solar capacity. And we need this because when we're estimating energy efficiency needs and solar capacity and demand needs from an energy perspective, we need to match all those things. So we need to know what those things are. And it's possible to do that. So one of our partners, Communal Life engineers who are used to doing this kind of thing, we took a look at Claremont. And as a feasibility study to show the city and have conversations that mean something, that are small enough to comprehend, we took all 22 municipally owned buildings in the city, right? Did a quick feasibility study about energy use, ran it through a model. These programs now exist. We used about 84 key assumptions, metrics to crunch. It takes a long time to actually crunch the numbers on this. But long story short, at the end of a 50-page report, we now know that we can take all 22 municipal buildings in the city of Claremont to net zero electricity, net zero carbon, offsetting all the electricity and all the gas, and over 25 years have a minus 94% greenhouse gas emission, right? So that sounds great, but what about the dollars? The dollars are about $8.5 million investment would pay for itself back in 9.7 years with about an 8.9 internal rate of return, right? Pretty cool. That gets people's attention, right? We're talking billions and billions of dollars that are available to invest in this kind of stuff. We could make money with part of those billions of dollars by spending it on our cities and have the cities make money, right? Even the investor would make money on this if it's not the city. This is possible. We need to start with a strategic plan, just like we planned for the house, we can now plan for the city. We need people engaged in this so that the city knows where they're headed. Community engagement. We've talked about community engagement. We try and infuse community engagement in every step. But just a couple things that we've developed. We have a number of different initiatives that we do. So one of the things we developed is a strategy for walking the town, knocking on every door in the community and being able to communicate things and keep track of what we've learned from those interactions. And we also believe in CHERP Realtor Mentoring. We have a CHERP Realtor Mentoring program because we actually believe that the realtors will be the vanguard, or could be the vanguard, of this entire movement, because at some point every building will go through a realtor's hands. If that realtor understands the opportunity around energy efficiency and renewables for that building, and then knows how to use some of Kevin's financing mechanisms, that building can be retrofitted, made more valuable in the transaction. And the realtor and everybody along the line in that transaction can make more money. So one of our goals is to have as many community partners as possible. We now have over 50 formal, engaged community members, both locally and regionally, who know what we're doing and have actually signed letters of formal engagement with us. One of the things we've been working on now for the last couple of years is forming a CHERP network of core energy groups, right? A core energy group's mission is to bring maximum opportunity to their city around energy. So we're imagining it as a 21st century Rotary group, right? In that sense. In that cities, I mean, we're talking city management, city councils. City councils may have some people on the city council who care about environmental issues, energy issues. You may have some people inside a city who care about that. In our community, we have several people on the council who really care. Our head planner really cares, but nobody has the time to focus on these issues. Nobody has the time to really be scouring the atmosphere for grant opportunities, to design programs, to administer the programs. Even in a city that has an energy action plan, is as part of our general plan, nobody's really managing that. So what we need is a community group of leaders, hopefully that would maybe even have a city council person on it, ours does, but made up of realtors, business people, homeowners who care about energy and are willing to start thinking strategically about how do we bring some of those resources that we were talking about seeing that are available to us to our community specifically, work with the city council and the planning staff on identifying what these opportunities are and executing to the strategic plan, right? So what we're doing is forming energy core groups around the state, and then we have a kind of a mastermind group. We've got Angie Hacker from Santa Barbara, retired, Howard Choi from the County of Los Angeles, retired head of sustainability for LA County, Cheryl Taggart from Ventura. And so we are going to be feeding the core energy groups with opportunities to help them understand what's going on, so that when we take a human being, a homeowner, we partner with that homeowner at the kitchen table and show them what their particular path is to net zero, right? And then we show them what the initiatives are. We bring in the contractors. We bring in the realtors who are smart and the appraisers who know how to appraise what's happening. We have the city engaged. We have community organizations engaged. We have rebates and financing obviously available. And now, of course, we're going to be working on developing our own local solar manufacturing facility so that we can actually surround the homeowner and the city with resources. And then, of course, the opportunity gets very exciting when we start core energy groups and have church cities even in constrained areas, energy constrained areas, because if we wrap all those together, we actually have an opportunity to create some massive megawatts, which is really where the dollars are right now, right? This is where we need to be thinking. How can we create maximum megawatts together? Building retrofits. Like I say, we started off with a goal of 130. We met that goal. We're now progressing. We got tired of doing retrofits one at a time, so now we're rolling out the 50 home challenge. We started in Claremont, and now we're also working through the county offices in Santa Barbara, and we've identified Santa Ynez as our next target audience. The goal here is to bring back the contractors into the field. Why did the contractors leave? Because there's no work, right? There was no client there. There was no there. So the contractors left. What we'd like to do is show, because we know that the demand is out there, we just need to know how to have that conversation at the kitchen table to connect the demand to the resource. So we want to show the contracting community in the entire state that there is demand, and if we can go in and stack up 50 retrofits at once, then the contractors can start planning a business and grow their business to be able to meet that demand, right? So in Claremont, we got deadly serious about having a lot of fun. This is our entire city council at the 4th of July Day Parade, because they know the value of the bully pulpit and communicating very big opportunities to the community. Our mayor, head of planning. When we first started retrofitting, we numbered signs and we had people come to city council meetings and we handed out signs to them. We still have the number 2 sign. This was done in 2012. That person still has their sign in their yard, right? We're now doing, I forget what is it, like a Monday from now, we're starting our first city council meeting in Solvang, and we're handing out our first 2 signs and plaques. So we've had community members. This was the 4th of July Day Parade, students from the colleges, community members. We had 60 people marching in the parade. Everybody was, out and being happy from old to young. This is we hold citywide workshops to communicate. We had 140 people show up to our community workshop in Redlands. After we met the 130 goal in Claremont, we decided to have a party, a citywide celebration that we met 130. We had a cake with 130 on it. We had over 400 people show up to this. We had Andrew McAllister come down. We had people from the governor's office. It was very exciting. And so this is just our attempt at celebrating this incredible opportunity and exposing the community to the richness of what we're all really talking about. So our 50 home challenge now, we're working in Santa Ynez. In Claremont, last fall, we set off to engage the community and get from them a request for an energy assessment. We wanted to get 150 energy assessments done, hoping that we could get 50 jobs out of that, right? So we formed a neighborhood steering committee in South Claremont, made up of the mayor, the professors, community members, faith-based community members, realtors, realtor broker, college students. There's more people. There were several different groups. This was our block champion. We met at his house. Our block champion, we were meeting once a week to brainstorm how to reach the neighbors. Because we were going out and recruiting. We recruited 150 Pomona College students at meetings. We had the mayor, we had other people from the community here. In this meeting, we had about 60 college students. And we signed up 150 students, and we hit the neighborhood every week. They set a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, of signing up 20 people for an energy assessment every week. And they took that seriously. So they showed up every weekend. We went out, and every weekend we knocked on over 250 doors. And they signed up 20 assessments a week. And at the end of 6 weeks, we had signed up 150 assessments. In 6 weeks. This is the community, totally engaged, everybody talking. So when we're knocking on doors, half the people when we knocked on their doors said, well, who are you? And we don't know what this is, and please go away. The other half pretty much said, oh, we've heard of this. We've heard the mayor talking about this. I heard about this at church. Sign me up. I want to get going on this, right? So triangulation, more people involved, more trust. Renewable energy. We're starting a program called Locally Grown Power. This is going to be the first in world nonprofit solar panel assembly factory. We're now combining cutting edge technology with a nonprofit business structure to bring back middle class manufacturing jobs around renewable energy, and the goal is to supply the lowest to middle income households first with solar systems, right? They are completely left out of the renewable energy revolution to date. So we're addressing the top 4 priorities in California by doing this: carbon mitigation, local economic stimulus, job creation, and environmental justice. Just phase 1 of the factory that we're going to start is we're going to install 6,000 homes at the lowest income levels with PV. We're going to retrofit 800 homes as part of that budget, and then we're going to do all 22 municipal buildings to net zero after the energy efficiency work. So what does that net out? Just phase 1, carbon mitigation. 6,000 homes, almost 27 million metric tons, right? Metric tons of carbon, not million. Metric tons of carbon. What does that equal? 65 million vehicle miles traveled, or one car driving 2,600 times around the planet each year. That's what 6,000 systems can do, right? The numbers get really crazy. Economic stimulus. Turns out that if we take 6,000 households at the lowest income level and offset about $100 a month, 80 to 100 is what we're figuring, that's currently going to the utilities, that's $6.5 million a year. The minute they have solar installed on their homes, that money that's getting sent to the utilities now gets injected directly back into the local economy at a higher multiplier rate at the low income level than the high income level. Because at the high income level, you save money on your utility, it goes to savings or investments. At the low income level, it gets spent on essential spending needs, right? That is a huge local economic stimulus. That will add $900,000 a year in sales tax revenue to the city and about $5.5 million a year back to the state of California. It's a 2-to-1 return to the state. Focusing on the annuity of energy that keeps giving every year for the next 25 years once it's installed at the lowest income levels. Job creation. We'll create 213 direct clean energy manufacturing jobs, which stimulates the local retail market, and we'll create 550 indirect jobs. Environmental justice. We will directly serve 6,000 low to middle income households, 800 low income households retrofitted, freeing up $6.5 million a year in disposable personal income, right? And we know that out of the $8 billion in cap and trade that's projected, 25% of that is going to be projected for disadvantaged communities. So we want to get ahead of that. We're creating our own solar panels with some new technology that's solving a major problem in solar PV that exists today, which is called hot spotting, or solar cells tending to go into reverse bias. I don't know if anybody's even heard of that, but it's a major problem in solar panels. It's been solved. We know how to make our own solar panels by hand, and the technology simplifies the process so that we can actually make them by hand in a local factory. We're on generation 5 of the systems now. They've been now delivered to Harvey Mudd College in Claremont, rated last year as the #1 undergraduate engineering school in the country, even over MIT. We're comparing our systems back to back with the best Kyocera panels available on the market. As we're doing daily tests right now, as of 2 days ago, we're showing 23% more output than the best panels that we can buy. We're forming partnerships with Claremont and Pomona, the cities. Once again, community engagement. We're talking about trying to form regional partnerships so that we can maximize all the grants and the shared resources, the workforce development opportunities. We've identified a factory space, and so we're going to start retrofitting this summer and start producing our own local solar panels. We've identified a classroom opportunity. This is our factory here. This is an adult education training program. So we're going to be able to actually train students here and here and have them walk across the parking lot and apply for jobs. And then, of course, we'll put solar panels everywhere we can. And then the city got so excited about this. This is our location. They said, well, okay, so then all we'll do is we'll get buses to drive around the area so people don't even have to drive to work. So I like that idea. And then, of course, we'll electrify the buses so that we can maximize our mission, which is kill GHG and create jobs and bring back these local middle-class manufacturing jobs to the United States. So that's just a smattering of kind of what we're doing. We're trying to inspire. Everything we do is designed to be replicable. This factory that we designed is going to be designed to be replicable in every community that wants one, so that we can all get on this bandwagon and satisfy by far the largest 50 to 70% of our population that is now not partaking or participating in this energy revolution. So how do we get there from here? I think we need to set some goals. And here are just some suggestions of goals that are up here. I'm hoping that maybe we can all do some brainstorming about what those goals might look like for each of us and how we can kind of pile on and make this richer as a conversation. One idea would be to create a core energy group that is focused solely on strategy of energy, and their job is to figure out a way to break down all the silos and get everybody on the same page from a strategic orientation and move us forward to bring in as much opportunity as we can around energy to our local community. I always talk about outreach. Our goal in every new community is essentially, the goal of outreach is to go out and make 1,000 new friends. For real. 1,000 new relationships. To really teach people what we know in this room. To have those conversations, to take what we know here and how it applies to their lives and their buildings. I think it would be a great goal to say we want to double the business for all local architects and contractors. What does that look like? How do we do that as a community? Double, triple, whatever we want to set here. But that creates a whole set of strategies. How do we double that? And it recognizes the fact that business has to be engaged. We have to have public-private, nonprofit engagement strategies. We have to work together so that everybody wins from the beginning, from every job. Explore all opportunities for CCE, CCA, right? This is a huge opportunity here. We need to be strategic in getting ready for this so that we can take the savings from that and...
The acronym. Community choice energy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Community choice energy, community choice aggregation. Systematic search for grants. We need some group looking for these grants because they're coming out all the time. Right? AQMD has a $61 million opportunity out there right now. Right? We may want to challenge or something like it. lead the town. We're developing a whole process for getting every light bulb in the town changed to LEDs. Realtor mentoring. One opportunity is to set a goal of the entire city council retrofitting their homes, or everybody in the city to retrofit their homes so they know what they're talking about, and we can talk about that to the community so that we can lead by example. And retrofitting doesn't have to be the whole thing. It can be, okay, I retrofit, I changed out all my light bulbs, I'm starting on the process, right? So these are just some ideas, but I think it's important for us to set some strategic goals that bring in lots of different kind of opportunities. And we need to do that together so that we can unpack and unlock the biggest economic opportunity that we've ever seen in our lifetimes if we choose to engage in it. Thank you.
All right, so while I queue up the next section, anybody have questions for Devon?
When I meet up with some of the reps I know from utility companies, I notice their feathers get really ruffled whenever I talk about this stuff, because they're like, oh, wait a minute, now, if you're doing all this community choice, and what's happening, those dollars aren't coming back to them.
The utilities?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's,
I just kind of noticed some of them get ruffled up, and other of my colleagues are like, yeah, this is good, keep going, and others are like,
I think that's exactly their biggest challenge. What's their business model going forward? Because this train's left the station.
yeah.
So that's on them to figure out how to make their business model work at this point. With cities in mass moving to buy their own energy, right? So, and the other thing we're going to have to get used to is they're going to still have to charge for keeping the grid alive for our distribution and our battery storage, right? That's a very important function.
In a discussion that I had with the PG&E rep that I know, he said a few years ago that their CEO transitioned the company from a power generation company to a transmission company. And that was a key realignment for them, kind of seeing this coming.
Great.